the board today. Our staff will bring those speaker slips over there, but you already know the drill. At the appropriate time, they'll escort you to the podium, and you will be able to make your comments to the board in person. Members of the public who are here in the boardroom or in the overflow room, again, remember you need to provide your speaker slip. Scott Marshall, who's standing over on the side of the room, will take your speaker slip. And remember if you are speaking in favor of any item on today's agenda, please submit a gold speaker slip. If you're speaking in opposition, please submit a pink speaker slip. And those who wish to address a board about a topic that is not on the agenda, please fill out a white speaker slip. In a moment, I will be proposing that agenda items 100, 101, 102, and 103 be placed on the consent agenda for today's meeting. Members of the public will have 3 minutes each to provide their comments about the agenda items or non-agenda public comments. However, if a large number of people wish to provide non-agenda public comments or speak on a single agenda item, these comments will be limited to 1 minute each. Collective testimony for those who support or oppose an item should be limited to no more than 15 minutes total per side. When I call your name, please step to the podium, state your name for the record, and begin making your comments. So now we will go to non-agenda public comments, and I do indeed have a few speaker slips, and I will say up front that I have been asking when Joy was going to return for the last couple of meetings. Joy, it is wonderful to see you here today. So, first up on the non-agenda public comment items, we will have Lily Cole, followed by Ellis Rose.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Lily.
My name is Lily Cole, and my question is, how does the fiscal year 26 administrative plan specifically address the risk of displacement in historically redlined neighborhoods, particularly in light of increasing value-add investment activity that targets low-income renters?
Okay. There are things in the administrative plan that is on the consent agenda for today.
We can follow up. As I said, I can have a conversation with you.
Yeah.
Payment standards, of course, are a key component of that.
Okay. So we will, Justice Joanna will follow up.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thank you.
All right. Next non-agenda public comment is Ellis Rose, followed by Clifford Weaver, and Joyce Signata.
Thank you, Ellis Rose. And if you remember last year, I was here partly because my unit had extensive black mold. And I'm here again this year because specifically my unit failed inspection a week ago, Thursday morning. And actually, I was glad to see the inspector, by the way. He was very nice, he was very polite. I want to give him compliments on that. The unit failed because of repairs not finished since my entire outer wall of my apartment was rebuilt last year because of black mold. So the unit was dinged for a hole in the wall and exposed electrical wiring. Right now, I have boxes piled up in front of it so that my pets don't play with it and electrocute themselves. Also, the unit's microwave has not been removed and replaced for a year, which limits my ability to cook and feed myself. And I know that there's a time element here, and that if it isn't taken care of within a certain amount of time, not only does the unit lose the Section 8, I lose my Section 8 too. And so that's why I'm coming to you. 2, what is considered an acceptable eviction rate? My understanding of Housing First is 0% or approaching it. Last year, our rate in my building was between 10 and 15%. Some actually were unjustified evictions. And so I'm going to ask that you look into it. Also, quite frankly, they weren't even completed. Sheriff's deputies were never called, except for one case. 3, what are the standards for permanent supportive housing and for case management practices? I'd like to see that in writing, because right now everything just seems to be up in the air in my building, and they mock me. And they think that, oh yeah, it's Ellis, and it's angering me. And my attorneys, the attorneys I've talked to, recommend that I come and speak to you. I witnessed repeated egregious abuses, and I am informed about the federal Housing First program and about Housing First philosophy. And then last, what are the standards for doing inspections? I have been inspected so many times, and I have to tell you, last year, I missed medical appointments, I missed appointments with Social Security, other social service agencies, because they would spring housing inspections upon us. And I know that they're in violation of state law, because I've consulted with legal aid. Legal aid says that I am fully right. They need to give 24 hours notice during business hours. And for some reason, my building manager believes that giving me notice at 2:30 p.m. the day before, when there's going to be an inspection from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. counts as 24 hours. He literally has said that to me. So I would like to ask that you put some attention to that. We get abused, and I'm not the only one who is going crazy about that.
Okay.
If somebody would follow up with me on these different items, I would appreciate that.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. We actually have Carrie Bell in the back who will follow up with you. And just for the board's information and the public, this is not a property we own or manage, but we do have voucher assistance on this site. So we do have a contract with the owner, which means we do have some authority that we can exercise to get involved and provide support to tenants when issues arise. And in regards to the inspections that Mr. Rose spoke about, these sort of surprise inspections, they're not our inspectors, this is property management. So he did the right thing following up with legal aid, but obviously we want to provide support and make sure that those that we're contracting with are following appropriate procedures and best practices.
Quick question here. What is the apartment building that he's staying in? Is it, do we have the name on that?
I believe it's Atmosphere. Cypress.
And that's located where? Location, just curious.
Do we know the location?
1435 Imperial Avenue.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Rose. Next up, Clifford Weaver.
Hi, I'm not here to complain, and I'm not here for HODADs because they're not open yet. You may not remember me. I'm the one that back in the March 14th meeting woke up. I said I woke up in the middle of the night underneath my warm electric blanket in a bedroom is big enough for a full-size pool table, wondering about the homeless people I had seen down at Presidio Park in front of the restroom that was closed. What were they doing? I wanted to thank you, especially the gentleman in the corner there. Thank you very much. The people that you serve cannot come up here. And I thought, well, okay, I want to thank you on behalf of the homeless. So here's the problem, and I'm going to offer a solution. Here's the problem. I wanted to email you. Do you know your website has no email address for any of you or the organization? I thought I remembered hearing something about you're going to redo the website. When you redo the website, please consider adding a personal, a business website address, a link. To the extent of my knowledge, you're the only public entity where the board members do not have that type of link. You don't have to read it. You can forward it to your staff members, and if you don't have enough staff members, I don't know how you're organized, you have over 20 leadership team members. They probably have staff members, or they can read them if you think it's significant. I was also wondering how the homeless would come down here and provide input. They're not going to walk down here, but maybe some of them that are homeless have an automobile, so they drive down here. But they wouldn't have a credit card for the parking meter. And then they have to get through the security. And then they have to be told, go up to the 5th floor, and then they'll take you down to the 4th floor. Twice I've gone in the elevator, pushed the 5th floor button, and it doesn't work. Somebody has to come in with a pass card. And then there's this big, huge security guard that could be a tight end. One of these days, I might pick up, just randomly, one of today there were 5 homeless people parked on 10th, sitting on 10th, leaning against the building, and there was one woman down here next to your building. Someday I might just randomly ask them to come up and say to them, if you had 2 minutes to talk to the Housing Commission, what would you say? Because how else are they going to talk to you? You do have an ombudsman. I love ombudsman. I used to recommend to my clients, ombudsman. None of them have adopted that process, but it's a good idea. But you still have to have an internet. And then the form says it's not required, but the form says, put your address. These people don't have addresses. I have 5 seconds. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your empathy. Thank you for listening to me, and good luck.
Thank you, sir. And when we come back at our next board meeting, we will provide information on how to access us and how to access. Sounds like even though we have public communication tools on our website, that they're not easy to find. So we will take a look at that. I appreciate you bringing that up because we do want to be low barrier and accessible. And we'll also make sure that we provide an update to the public and the board at our next board meeting.
Thank you. The chair needs to step out for a minute. Our next public speaker is Joy.
Rosette. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I am honored to be here, and it was so wonderful to be welcomed by the chair this morning. And a lot of other people welcomed me too when I arrived. And I don't expect that. It really rarely happens. I've been doing this for 18 years, and it just means a lot to me. So thank you so much. I'll just say that as I get older, I'm cutting back a little bit from spending, I think I used to spend 90 hours a week doing this work all around the city, but I'm cutting back a little bit, mostly doing Zoom with the city. So I've missed all of you, and it's good to be back. I think I'm really back now. So thank you so much. I wanted to say mostly thank you, everybody. We're rolling on the strategic plan. I bow to you, President. I'm beyond. You know, it's just so wonderful that this is happening. It's key. It's key to our budget. It's key to the whole process of the commission. So thank you, and I don't think you have a deadline when you're going to try to reach it, but hopefully it'll be this year for sure. So I wanted to point out to you on the homeless issue, John Brady spoke yesterday at the budget hearing on the homeless, and I didn't fully hear it completely. I was busy at home, but he talked about a triage of going out into the community and really switching the way we do homeless outreach and work with the homeless. And I think it sounded innovative and something that we need to look at. So I want to just second the motion on that. John Brady, you know, he's been in the street and he's turned his whole life around. He really knows all of this so well. So I appreciate and love him so very much. And I think it was the chair last meeting when I was here way back, when he used the word collaboration and creativity. And I think those are just so important. And for all of us tenants that may be impacted in one way or another as we move into these future budget things that are coming up, I want to stay positive on it. Collaboration is the key. And please keep all of us tenants in the web, in the network, do more outreach. Let us know what's happening. To hear the truth is really the best. And to know that you're there for us is the second best. So thank you so much for that. I think that covers it. It's good to be back. I'll finish with just this, Mr. Marshall. I can't change the past. I can't foresee the future. I can and will and do my best to live fully now. So love to all. It's so good to be back. Thank you for working so hard.
Thank you, Joy. Good to have you back, and don't go far because I have your other slips. Next, I will ask if any commissioners would like to make any comments. If there's no commissioner comments, I'll use my commissioner comments to ask Casey to give us our report.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm here to present an update on our coordinated shelter intake program. In the month of April, we received 2,550 referrals for shelter, which is the most in any given month this fiscal year. We're not entirely sure what's driving that. We think maybe some of the media coverage of Rachel's, because you'll see later on that the request for female beds did the male beds this month, so we think it might be related to that. We were able to place 238 folks in shelter for a completion rate of 9%. This was likely down from previous months due to the suspension or the temporary suspension of intakes at Rachel's and stay while we were preparing for the move, which has been completed as of now. And also at Rosecrans, we have temporarily suspended intakes on April 17th due to the uncertainty about the future of the program. So the number one reason we were not able to accommodate referrals was for no top male bunks, and then number 2 and number 3 were for no female bottom or top bunks, which like I said previously, it's not typical, but we think it's because the news around Rachel's. Year to date, we've received 20,931 referrals, and we've placed 2,459, or 12% completion. 63% of the reason we were not able to fulfill referrals is due to not having a male bed, and 28% for female.
Thank you. I believe that the completion rate last month was 10%, so it's down a bit.
It was 10, yeah.
And the transition, last month we had, which shelter had suspended intakes?
Both Rachel's and Safe Stay were also suspended last month.
Okay,
as well.
but those moves
March,
those moves are complete. So, do you know when they'll be resuming intakes?
The Safe Stay probably in the next week or so. It's to be determined about Rachel's.
Okay, and then the one that we had one site you said that suspended on April 17th, so that would have been covered in this last month.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious if we know why, if our year average is 12% and last month was 10%, that made sense. Is the additional drop in intakes, do we think that's because of the additional suspension, or?
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know for certain, but I think that would make the most sense, because anytime we suspend intakes, we see a natural drop
Okay.
in completion rates, so.
Okay. So hopefully, if that's the case, barring all the other factors we have, hopefully we would see something closer to the average next month, is what
We hope.
we would
Yes.
hope.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with Rosecrans, that's.
True.
Yeah. Rosecrans, we may continue to see a challenge.
Yeah, that is really unfortunate to read about Rosecrans and the dispute. We're barely hitting 1 out of 10 referrals can be successfully completed as is, and we can see the change every time one facility, even temporarily, suspends intakes. So I certainly hope that the leaders in charge of the budgets that are responsible for Rosecrans can figure that out, because, just to be clear here, Lisa, the goal, if we had a functional, actual safety net around homelessness and housing, the goal would be we'd be somewhere closer to 100%, meaning anybody needing shelter, who's seeking shelter, can show up and get a bed. And we are so far away from that, so.
Sorry, there we go, thank you. And of course, the broader goal is to have a whole lot less people coming into the system in the first place, right? So having really strong prevention and diversion methods so that we are limiting the inflow, which means that the available shelter beds we do have are not being as impacted.
Yeah, we would,
100%.
if we had 10 times the shelter capacity we have right now, even that would be full within a year. Or less.
I think we would still struggle. We
Yeah.
really have to start showing up diversion and prevention so that those investments there impact how the shelter system is performing.
Yeah. Yeah, the turnover seems to be such an important part, and every time we have a single facility pause intakes, we see what happens when that capacity drops.
Workforce housing.
Mm-hmm.
Workforce, you're not going to ever build a shelter bed. But if we really got active in workforce housing.
Yeah. There's no reason we should have, Commissioner Cushion's mic's off, he's pointing out workforce housing. Yeah, there's no reason we should have people who are fully employed, sometimes with more than one job, staying in shelters, which is a common thing. Yeah, or their car. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Casey, appreciate it. Fingers crossed for next month. Next, we will have the report from the president and CEO.
That is going to be really easy. We just met 2 weeks ago, so I do not have a report this time. I will say, Joy, we're anticipating July for the board meeting for the strategic plan. If it drags at all, that will be because we're collecting further input. We want to make sure we get a lot of public input. If you haven't gone to our website, please do, because there is a survey for the public on there. So please, for both you and any other public who wants to provide input. We're seeing, I think we've had over 1,000 right now responses, which is terrific. And so if not July, September would be the latest, but we're anticipating July.
If I read one line further, since we met just 2 weeks ago, we will not have a report from the president and CEO today. We will be finishing the strategic plan this year, knock on wood. And thank you for everyone who's participating in that. Next is the approval of the minutes for the April 25th, 2025 special meeting of the board. I'll note for the record that the item on today's agenda about the minutes referred to April's meeting as a regular meeting, but the April 25th date was a special meeting, as is indicated in the minutes. We have speaker slips from Joy on 3 of the items. You may speak to all 3 of them. Make sure they're all, yes. You may speak to all 3 of them at the same time instead of getting up and sitting down repeatedly. I think Scott will turn that on in just a moment.
Thank you. Thank you. Vice Chair, did we roll over 100? I'm not going to speak on that, but did we roll by 100? Or that's coming later?
100 is coming later.
Okay, sorry. Okay. I'll roll through these. I really wanted to speak on especially 2 of these because they're great. And I wanted to put my yes out there, and I know you're going to approve them. And, in this climate and this time that we're going through, these yeses that we can give for these really, really important items are just so great. So yes to the approval. This is 101. Yes to the approval of the award of the contracts for general contractors. And the only reason I'm speaking on this is that I'm really getting more diligent at city council meetings and committees and looking at the workforce reports and the EOC reports. So I know that you don't do what they do and have them in the backup. But I just wanted to say that I think my understanding is that they're available for the public on file somewhere, and perhaps they're available for public to use. So this is an important item, and of course I say yes on that. Okay, number 2, yes on the sole source agreement with Alpha Project for the homeless. Another great one. So, 326 beds, that's just such a wonderful, wonderful number. So I like that you, let me see, after 1 year, there'll be a review in regards to the budget funds availability. Got to do that. Thank you for stating funding sources will not include federal funds. Really, really appreciate that statement. So love to you on that. Number 103, yes to the sole source agreement with the center to operate the Safe Stay Wellness Center. I mean, this is so great. So a big, big thank you to U.S. Representative Scott Peters. He really is out there working for us. I've known him and his work for years, and he's just fabulous. So thank you, thank you. And thank you to everybody who made this center happen. It's vital, important, and I love you all for that. Thank you.
Joy, I was incorrect. Item 100 will be on consent. If you would like to speak to that, you may. Okay, great. Let me catch up on my chair duties here. 1 second. Do we have any commissioner changes or comments on the minutes, or do we have a motion? Or I'm sorry, am I
So
on the
moved.
right?
Yes, minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll move to approve the minutes as they were submitted.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Vasquez and a second by Tony.
Yep.
All those in favor? Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. Sorry, I got the pages in the chair's order, and I just found the page numbers, so thank you. Now on the consent agenda, I'm sorry, we did the minutes. Did I take the public comments on the consent agenda first before we had voted on the minutes?
Yes, you did, but I think only Joy, do we have any other comments on it?
We don't have any other comments, so given that it was during the minutes, sorry, Joy,
Consent agenda.
we knew what you were talking about. We are now on to the consent agenda. I have found page 5. We are off of page 4.
I move approval of the consent.
Thank you very much. Are there any changes? Is there a second? Second. Can I have a vote on the consent agenda? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The motion passes unanimously. Where's the chair? Now we are on to item 10.
It's the budget.
It's the budget, yeah. Item 104, right? Okay.
Next is item, you're right there.
Got it. Now we're on to item 104, the only item that we are actually hearing in full today.
Please take enough time, the chair will come back and you saved it.
I've provided ample time for people to submit public comments if you have any public comments on item 104. If not, the President, CEO, and Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Suket Dayal, will present this item. Please begin when you are ready. Take the mic away from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well done. Good idea. All right, good morning, Commissioners. As we discussed with you in detail in the informational workshop on April 25th, the challenges we are navigating through this budget season are significant. We won't repeat all of the details from our previous presentation, but as we noted before, our goals are to ensure our voucher programs, affordable housing units, and homelessness programs remain available for the individuals and families who need them. We also are focused on supporting our frontline staff who deliver these essential services. In the past 2 weeks, we have not yet received any additional clarity from the federal government about our funding sources, so there is still quite a bit of uncertainty about our budget. But we continue to focus on the thousands of San Diegans struggling financially in our city who turn to us for assistance and also to focus on our outstanding team which serves them. And I'm going to hand it over to Suket.
Thank you. Key points about our proposed budget are summarized on the slide. We have still not received our funding notification from HUD for calendar year 2025. HUD has advised us in December to expect a 2% cut for our rental assistance funds in calendar year 2025. This cut is in addition to the shortfall of HUD funding we already received compared to our rising rental assistance expenses before this year. Our proposed fiscal year 2026 budget anticipates a gap of $17.8 million between the moving to work or MTW voucher funds to be allocated to SDHC and the actual amount of our MTW voucher rental assistance payments. Now, this is the portion of contract rent that we pay the landlords on behalf of the families. That equates to approximately 1,000 families we will need to support by using our HUD-held reserves. We are able to do this in fiscal year 2026, but our diminishing reserves cannot support this as an ongoing expense. For homeless shelters and services programs, very thoughtful and coordinated cost reductions to some programs are budgeted for fiscal year 2026. Across 14 city-funded programs, budgets are decreasing by $4.2 million or 8.2% from their fiscal year 2025 budgets. However, with the exception of Rachel's Promise Shelter program, our budget for the city-funded homelessness programs will see an overall increase of $1.4 million or 2.6% across all programs. In the new fiscal year, Rachel's Promise will expand from 50 beds for women to 210 beds for women and children. City funding will also continue to support homelessness services, including the Housing Instability Prevention Program, the Eviction Prevention Program, Homelessness Navigation Services, Day Center, and Storage Centers. In the area of affordable housing, we have budgeted $22.8 million through a competitive notice of funding availability to provide financing to create approximately 228 new affordable housing units. This funding is typically used as gap financing and provides the leverage to secure multiple other funding sources. The budget also includes $45.4 million in a potential funding from the state's Home Key Plus program and related funding commitments from the city and county towards the acquisition of affordable housing. I do want to note we will be adjusting the dollar amounts related to the Home Key Plus before we present the budget to the Housing Authority next month for consideration for final approval. The revisions are based on new information we've received this week. It's all positive. It's not going down, it's going up. On Tuesday, the County Board of Supervisors approved $7 million in general purpose revenue for the county's capital funding commitment to the Home Key Plus program. City documents also now reflect $11.5 million in community development block grant funds for the Home Key Plus project, which is about $100,000 more than what we have in our current proposed budget. As a reminder, we will be applying for the Home Key Plus funds, and the proposed property acquisition is contingent on those funds being awarded to SDHC. Our total funding sources for fiscal year 2026 are budgeted at $715.6 million. With the updated home key funding just mentioned, that number will be $715.8 million. The proposed budget includes some non-recurring sources of funds, such as about $45 million in state, city, and county funding for the Home Key Plus acquisition, and $15 million from a second year of a 3-year Infill Infrastructure Grant IIGC program. Our funding sources are designated as federal, local, and state. On our federal sources, you will see an increase in our Section 8 MTW assistance, which is due to the drawdown of reserves we discussed earlier. Under local funding, I want to highlight we will be moving the 2 line items titled Home Key Acquisitions to the appropriate sections to reflect the funding sources. The state funding includes allocated for the proposed home key acquisition, homelessness funding, and the Infill Infrastructure Grant. Our budgeted fund balance is also shown as a funding source. For funding uses, the fiscal year 26 budget reflects no change in the number of staff positions. The slight increase in personal costs includes cost of living adjustments and increases in health insurance benefits that were negotiated in the Housing Commission's Memorandum of Understanding with Service Employee International Union Local 221. Increases were not greater because some of the costs were offset by some of the savings from eliminating or consolidating some senior positions. The increase in the housing program expense reflects the increase in our voucher costs. This slide also shows a 6% increase in property expenses, professional services, supplies, and other items. This reflects the increase in insurance expenses, maintenance, and protective service costs for our affordable housing properties. And lastly, the capital expenditure decrease is predominantly due to the difference in the fiscal year 26 and fiscal year 25 home key acquisition costs. We are relying on diminishing reserves to meet our needs to balance our budget in fiscal year 2026. This slide shows the decline in reserves we're budgeting from the start of fiscal year 2026 to the end of the fiscal year. Let's start with the HUD-held rental assistance reserve, which is the top blue box. We will draw down nearly $25 million to support our programs and families who rely on them, which will leave us with an ending balance of $13.3 million. That is not enough to support 1 month of rental assistance costs, which is around $25 million. We have talked about the physical needs assessment and the work needed identified to maintain our properties. The green box estimates reserves at $17.7 million at the end of fiscal year 2026. Of that, around $16.8 million in capital improvement needs on our affordable housing properties in years 2 to 4, as identified in the physical needs assessment we talked about earlier. We are recommending a change to our operating reserve, or what previously was called the contingency reserve. The previous methodology was based on, which came from IBA guidance, was based on new revenue and not actual expenses. The updated methodology actually slightly reduces reserves levels and aligns with best practices. The recommended reserve levels are 1 month of operational cost for the agency, but this does not include the voucher cost. It also includes an average of 2 months of operational cost for our affordable housing portfolio. This brings us to the minimum reserve levels as seen in the orange box. Lastly, we have the bottom box of program restricted reserves. These are reserves whose use is restricted by specific programs. The vast majority of these reserves are previously committed funds allocated through our NOFAs for affordable housing developments. These funds are dispersed as projects complete milestones on their path to completion.
Hold on. Suket, did I understand you to say we would, under this plan, we'd only have 1 month of operating reserves?
The $21.3 million that's in there represents 1 month of SDHC operations. That is correct.
And what are our operating reserves today?
So we plan, based on what we're seeing right now, to end our operating reserves at 27.3 at the start of the year. So we'll end it with 21.3.
Which is?
$27.3 million.
Which is 2 months, 3 months?
No, it's not 2 months or 3 months. It's just, if you look at, so this is a change in methodology, and that's why it gets a little confusing. If you look at, I'm going to go back 2 slides.
May I jump in here? The 21 and change is 1 month of operational expenses, and that will be the new reserve for operations. The 27 that you're looking at was not based on a month of operations. It was a different calculation. So the amount we still need for 1 month is still 21 million. We've had slightly more than that in the past because we were setting the reserves on a different criteria. So when we're switching over, it's dropping slightly. Our monthly, though, is still the same as it was approximately last year. Yeah.
But I think 1 month of operating reserves is ridiculous. I mean, that's not good at all. I don't know of a public agency that only has 1 month of reserves.
This is the minimum based on the best practice work that Suket can share a little bit more about.
Well, I think that's a lousy best practice.
Well,
we'd like to be in better shape.
We'd like to be in better shape. I think one of the things, so I do want to point out here, this is where the contingency reserve calculation is based on what your revenue is, which doesn't make sense, because if you're basing your contingency reserve on revenue received, that revenue changes back and forth. Like we had $45 million that's going to come in, which has no correlation to what it takes to keep the lights on at the agency. Right. That's why we're changing the practice. We're going to 1 month. In a perfect world, would we like to have 2 months, 3 months? Absolutely. But based on the reserves that we have left at the end of June 30, 2026, what we want to definitely earmark, for lack of better words, is at least 1 month of operating reserves. And that's what's shown on the slide here. Should we have more? Sure. I mean, one of the things we've talked about is 1 month of HAP expenses, which is anywhere close to $25 million, is something also which should be part of a contingency reserve. So we can at least make the payment for 1 month. But the sources are not there to support it.
So my question is, have we previously had more months of operating reserves, and because we're now spending into those reserves, we're down to a month? Or is this agency operated on 1 month reserves?
We've previously, the $25 million draw that's going to happen on our HUD reserves is definitely a big factor into the amount of reserves that we've had in the past and what we have going forward.
So I will say, when we have too much reserve, what could be perceived as too much reserved, we can be accused of sitting on money that could be spent. So as a public agency, we are always walking a line of folks saying, well, you've got, like, especially when people look at the dark blue box, right? Like, you're saying that you are in a time of scarcity, but if you add all those up, it equals that, right? So you're sitting on money. So it's a very difficult line for this board and our policymakers and us as staff to walk. But the reality is, as we head into the next fiscal year, to fiscal year 27, this is the minimum that we should have, which is why there's going to have to be a lot of work done over this year to try to make sure that our actuals come in less than we're budgeting for.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I'm bringing up here is what Suket just told us is with our new policies and our new fiscal year coming up, we're going to only have 1 month of operating reserves. I think that is bad public policy. And I would challenge staff, you can only work with the numbers you got, I understand that. But I would challenge staff to come back to this board with what is it going to take to increase those reserves. I can tell you at the Port of San Diego, we operated with 6 months of reserves. So we were very fortunate and we were blessed, and a lot of people thought we should spend it down. But at the end of the day, I think I wouldn't be doing my job if I sat here and let you just go by without publicly noticing that 1 month is not good fiscal policy.
I could not agree with you more, and respectfully, I have to say.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, please, thank you. I don't disagree with you, sir.
I don't think any of us disagree with what you just said. Let me remind you that last year, the city made a play for us to dip into our reserves even more so. And we spent many months because advisors in the mayor's office, whoever it was, had told them that we had a bunch of money in reserves that could be tapped. So all last year, when we should have been thinking about how we brace ourselves for the future, as you are pointing out right now, we were spending all of that time explaining that we actually have not been sitting on some huge amount of cash. Since I've been in public life in San Diego, there has been a misconception out there in the world that the Housing Commission is sitting on tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. I hear it to this day from people who have been around and are smart enough and should know much better than to keep suggesting that. The reason we have insufficient reserves from what we should have is because other agencies have been asking this commission to subsidize programs that they've been doing, to administer the program but not be sufficiently reimbursed for the operating expenses is the most common form, and that's been going on for years. And so everybody here, I think, has been asking that we be in a more stable financial position. I pointed out last year the devastation that would happen if there was a full shutdown that included Section 8 funds. It felt like a lonely job screaming into the wind, warning people about something that could happen. So I welcome the support today, but this has been years in the making, and I'm sorry, but this is not the year where we can start accumulating more reserves. What we would be doing in that case would be throwing people out on the street and saying, we need more backup to cover our salaries for the 2 months when the whatever happens. We can't do that. This agency can't do that. The port can do that if it wants. The port has lots of ways it can generate money in a pinch. We don't. The money that we spend, vast majority of it, 95% of it, goes to people who have nothing left that they can give us back. So I think we're all in agreement that 1 month of operating reserves is not enough. And I think other local agencies in the area need to understand, potentially for the first time in 10 or 20 years, that our reserves are not a piggy bank for the county or the city.
Yeah,
I hear what you're saying, Ryan. However, I think the discussion last year was over $5 million. We're talking about $25 million as a 1 month.
It was not. It was over a lot more than that.
It ended up at $5 million, is that correct?
It was over $27 million originally.
Yeah, well, that was ridiculous. Okay, but it was over $5 million, which is, 7 days, not 30 days. Is that correct, Suket, that it's $25 million is a 1 month reserve, or $27 million?
21.3 is what we have.
21.3.
Correct.
Okay, so the $5 million was a week, maybe, that was being discussed. What I'm challenging staff to do is not today, but good fiscal policy would say that 1 month is an unacceptable, fiscally responsible reserve. And I think our job over the next year or whatever it is, irrespective of what we have to do, if we're going to do our job, we can't run an organization on a 1 month reserve. So
Yeah,
I'm just challenging staff to come back to us.
So respectfully,
plan.
sir, we have been working on a plan, and we are working on a plan. I am happy to brief the board. I would prefer initially to do it individually as the plan is still being developed. Some of these things will be operational decisions that I make and make sure the board and the city council are not surprised about, or I and our team make. Some of them will be policy decisions that will come in front of you for a vote. But our goal and our role over the next year, and every division head, including Jeff Davis and myself, is tasked with this, is to look at how we can increase revenue and decrease expense, so that when we get to the end of next year, our actuals come in significantly lower than budgeted, and our projections for 27, 28, and 29 look stronger. That is something we are keenly aware of. It is a project we are already working on. It's actually in my talking points in a few slides. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, and frankly appreciate the support that reserves are something that we must have, because it is not support that we have had across the board consistently before. And Commissioner Klempner, thank you for your comments as well. This is an important conversation to be having, so our other partners understand how critical reserves are to make sure we can function. If we have the same issue a year from now that we had January 28th when Trump turned the portal off and we couldn't access funds, we won't be able to pay rent to over 4,000 landlords for over 17,000 families in our community. That is a terrifying place to be in. So we understand what we need to do to prepare for that. We can't prepare for everything. If they end the voucher program, that's a whole other conversation, right? But we are very focused on preparing for that. And I appreciate that, because hopefully when we come back to you for our next budget conference going into fiscal year 27, we will have better news and those will look better. So thank you.
I have a couple more general questions here now that we're hopefully maybe through our reserves.
Well, I want to just chime in on the reserves. I do, Lisa, I would ask that you do come back and with, you could talk to the members as you just said, but we come back with some sort of statement about reserves. Mr. C, you and I have served on a bunch of occasions together. We know how important cash on hand is from a hospital system standpoint. We deal with SHARP. From the food bank standpoint, when we took it over, it was near bankruptcy. So you and I share that same concern about having adequate reserves. Been there. I do think that last year was telling, because there was an assumption in City Hall that was completely off base, and you and I had that call that first day, and we realized that they were looking at things as it was just a bucket of money sitting in a room, and that we could just come over and dip in and grab some. That was not the case. So I do think that having a good reserve policy is important for this organization, and that we try and achieve that reserve policy, and that we have it sitting there, because Vice Chair Klempner is right. I've watched over the years in this organization. Remember when we were having this conversation about Cortez Hill and the YWCA, when the city decided, well, we can't fix this, so we're going to give it to the Housing Commission. They have plenty of money. Great example, right? And like, wait,
It was a hot mess.
It was a hot mess, because it wasn't a $2,000 fix, right? It was millions, and so that was because you guys have plenty of money. We just need to have a reserve policy. I expect you will come back, and that we will set the tone for what it is we're doing, how much we're trying to accumulate, and why.
Absolutely, and this is a great conversation, because we do have guidance that we developed based on working with an independent consultant, which is what you saw in front of you, barring the voucher reserves, which is the exception. We can relook at that, make some more robust suggestions, and bring something back to the board.
Yeah, and I'll just end with this one thing, because you're saying this, Vice Chair Klempner. There's an article popped up this morning on my feed, and it was about the administration's statements about Section 8 housing, and the pending reduction in what they're going to spend. That should scare everybody. I was with some of the members of the legislature yesterday. That is a statewide concern. But in high cost of living areas like ours, it's a disaster. And so we have to think about how we're going to protect people. And that's becoming really hard when we talk about losing the emergency voucher program 2 meetings ago, and you've got 460 families that are impacted by that. We're starting to see what's around the bend, and it's a concern, and we have to figure out how we're going to get everybody through this. So.
Absolutely, and I will, do you mind if we'll just have one slide?
Yeah. Okay.
No, and it speaks to the conversation that we've just been having, so I'll just finish up. In fiscal year 2026, cost reductions, as we've discussed, are going to be an important part as our fund balances drop below reasonable levels. See, I saw where you were going. Yeah. For SDHC's long-term financial viability. I'm paying attention. Yeah. This, in fact, will necessitate looking at cost reductions and revenue opportunities across all departments. As you know, we already have taken steps to contain costs while continuing to assist families already in our programs. We continue to not pull new families from our waiting list to receive rental assistance. We are not awarding new project-based housing vouchers through notices of funding availability. We have continued to reorganize as higher level positions have left, either underfilling or not backfilling them. Still, we must look for opportunities to increase revenue given our limited options, and they are limited. The reality is we are not a fee-for-service agency. We cannot just turn the dial on our fees or our costs to our residents. Identifying revenue generation opportunities, though critical, is limited. And though we have and will continue to look for grant and philanthropic funding to further our work and bring resources to our community, those opportunities often do not fully cover our costs, as Commissioner Klumpner just mentioned. And those are costs we can no longer afford to absorb. We must continue to identify areas to reduce current and future costs, a challenge which I said each division head has been tasked with, and one that I and our Deputy CEO, Jeff Davis, are keenly focused on if he ever comes back from vacation. Well deserved. Our goal is to have as little impact as possible on frontline staff. So at this time, I will repeat, at this time we do not anticipate furloughs or layoffs impacting frontline represented positions. I think that's really important for the folks that are serving people experiencing homelessness, the folks that are serving our voucher participants, our staff that are managing our properties, to be aware of that. However, the reality is we are in unprecedented times, and we have tough decisions ahead to solve for funding sources that are anticipated to continue at lower levels. And there will be actions we must explore and thoughtfully implement to ensure the stability and viability of SDHC, not just now, but over the coming years. We really need to be thinking ahead. So today we are requesting that the board recommend that the Housing Authority take the actions detailed in the staff report and shown on this slide. As I have said earlier, we will be bringing decisions in front of you as far as policy goes to try to achieve some of our goals. There will also be operational decisions that will be made that we will be informing you of and getting input as we implement those. That concludes the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, Vice Chair Klumner, I think you said you had a couple other questions. You want to add those in?
Yeah.
I mean, we have one speaker slip.
Let's do the one speak.
Okay. Did Joy leave? Okay, good. She's still here. The speaker slip we have for this is Joyce and Yana.
Sorry about that blow earlier. I appreciate it. Okay. Chair, I just wanted to, I don't think you heard what I said earlier. You said a couple meetings back, two words that I just love. You said collaboration and creativity. And I think I want to say that right away at the beginning. We must take a deep breath. It's got to include love. We're all humans. We must collaborate with each other on all levels. It's tough work. It's an art, but we've got to do it. Thank you, Chair. Please guide us in that direction. President Jones, you were fabulous yesterday. I was on Zoom listening to the meetings all day at City Council, and she's great. And she said something that it saved the ship. The ship was beginning to sink, and our president, she saved the day, because she said that there's going to be, or there is in already, a resiliency program. That's what it's going to take, is to go do a deep dive and pull up our resilience. We have it. We're designed for resilience. So that's the best thing you could have said to us, I think, in my opinion. And it will be our North Star to get through these times. So CEO President Lisa Jones, just keep guiding us, will you? And I appreciate it so very much. So just one quick thing. We're really being required to be more stringent in our processes, in our implementation, in everything we do, on a state level, on a HUD level. They're asking us to say, show me the money, show me what you're really doing, and I think it's going to get tighter. And we can do it because we've been doing a good job. We just need to put it down in print. So I hope I didn't go over again, Mr. Marshall. Sorry about that earlier. Love to everybody. It was a great meeting, and we're in this together, and love to all.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate that. And you're right. I mean, again, when I say creativity and collaboration, we have to be fueled by empathy in the end. All right. Vice Chair Klumner.
A couple things. One, I just want to point out on slide 2, because we don't see this terribly often, I want to point out something. So I'm very glad to see that we're continuing to fund affordable housing. Again, the NOFA that we're talking about here, the 22.8 million, the sources on that that is primarily the local fee revenue?
It's a combination. So it's 9.8 of Affordable Housing Fund, it's 6 million of CDBG, and 7 million of home.
Got it. So those sources are not reliable or predictable, and we're on a year-to-year basis on how large that NOFA is. That funding got reduced last year from what was originally proposed. And then the thing I wanted to point out is that the 22.8 million, that is creating approximately 228 new permanent affordable homes. If we do the math on that, that is $100,000 per unit. And we never really talk about this. That is the limit of what the Housing Commission directly puts into a project. So for anybody out there who watches and reads the stories and sees us approve projects where the per door cost is, say, $900,000, that does not mean that the Housing Commission is paying $900,000 per unit on that project. That upper limit of what the Housing Commission awards that project is $100,000 per door. So since we've got the math right in front of us, at least math that I can do in my head, I wanted to point that out for everyone. And then I had a couple questions, because I think that we're all sort of grappling with some questions that we've never considered before. And so this is for the President CEO, probably for Chuck, maybe just for Chuck. But whoever can answer it, I am curious here, and I'll describe it as Section 8 is essentially that the federal government has made a deal, a commitment to landlords to pay them a portion of the rent for the residents living there. And I want to be really clear here.
It's not complete yet.
That money does not get handed at any point ever to a tenant. That money goes from the federal government to us, to a landlord. And you might have a piece of paper that says you're on the list to be somebody who benefits from that, but the tenants don't receive a dime in direct assistance. So the arrangement here has been with the federal government and the property owners who are counting on that revenue and have been for decades. At what level can the federal government even reduce that program before this is just a issue of the full faith and credit of the United States?
I think that's a great question, and I'd just like to expand on that. So we mentioned about $25 million a month goes into our local economy and pays landlords. Landlords who, many of them have mortgages, right? So when you think of the personal cost to families who no longer have subsidy, who might end up on our streets, and that impact to that community and to our city and to our city policymakers, that's significant. Then you add on the cascading effect of $25 million not going into our city on a monthly basis and mortgages that don't get paid. You go from a humanitarian crisis to a mortgage crisis. That's the economics of this. At a federal level, nearly $30 billion in voucher funds go out on an annual basis. Over 600,000 landlords depend on those payments, and nearly 3 million households. So when you think of the decisions behind this, they are not just impacting people who are trying to do their best in high market, high cost economies, especially like ours, who are not going to be okay without this assistance. They are also impacting the bottom line of small and large businesses who can't pay their mortgages.
How many landlords?
Over 600,000 nationally, and nearly $30 billion annually in the voucher program. So when I say there are industry representatives across the spectrum mobilizing around this issue, it is not just your permanent supportive housing projects, not just your PHAs, your housing authorities. It is your National Apartment Association. It is your National Association of Redevelopment Officials, right? There are folks and industries across the country up in arms about this, and rightly so. It is a humanitarian disaster if it happens, and it's also a financial and economic.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't even wrap my head, like, if Section 8 stopped at any point, it seems like the first thing that would happen is our courts across the board, local, state, and federal, would immediately be overwhelmed with the number of legal actions in terms of loan defaults, evictions, bankruptcies of the companies owning the properties. I mean, it would be so large, I don't even know how the court system would handle the volume of claims that would be made, which is kind of why I would like to provide a little bit of reassurance here. Many agencies are seeing grants just eliminated with no notice. Is Section 8, does it have that level of exposure federally, or is there an we know that we will have at least some runway because they have to fulfill the obligations that have currently been made?
As soon as
Justice Christensen, please. So fine.
As soon as there's we don't have budgets anymore federally, so as soon as you have a continuing resolution passed and there's an allocation of funds within that resolution, that's fixed for whatever period of time it covers. Beyond that, everybody's on their own.
Yeah, so basically, Chuck, what you're saying is that whatever the number is that's fixed, ultimately, if it's fixed and it shows that in order to spend all the money over that period of time, you got to reduce everybody's rent by 20%, that's effective immediately.
Yeah, that's right. You've got to save the money somewhere, and
And the bigger issue, which is even if our funding comes in fairly level with this budget obligation letter that we don't have, that takes us through September. So our continuing resolution goes through September. So if a budget is actually achieved at a federal level, we have no idea what October will look like. We don't know if it'll be another CR at much lower levels. We don't know if it'll be a final budget. Every contract, and to the best of my knowledge, and I'll look to Azucena, every contract we have with a landlord, whether it's a project-based voucher contract or whether it's an individual voucher contract, has some terms in it that are HUD terms that say it's contingent on funding availability.
So really, the October to June is, we would have no idea. The rest of
October, that's the
October is the real issue.
Right. As soon as we get our letter, hopefully sometime in the next few weeks, we should know what that looks like from back to January through September. Beyond October, we don't know, which is why there's a lot of focus at a national level and also internally with our new federal consultant on what our advocacy, both nationally and with others, and individually looks like over the next few weeks and months. We anticipate the HUD secretary testifying on May 21st about the 26 budget.
So the short answer is that we never really have more than, at the absolute most, and this doesn't really even happen anymore, a 1-year guarantee on Section 8. And beyond that, it is a matter of congressional action. So we're at the mercy of what Congress is willing to approve, and we can only count on what has been approved already.
And you've only got the CR through September. We have a decent idea what's going to happen between now and September. We have no idea the Wild West is going to pop up come October 1.
The rest of our fiscal year, from October 1 to June 3rd, we have no idea.
That, to me, is the bigger issue, because if they start cutting again, now you're starting really to cut bone.
Nope, just that.
Sobering, but thank you. Well, again, I think we talked about this the last couple of meetings because we were giving notice that things were happening and changing, and this is going to be a difficult period because what we do is not a luxury; it's a necessity, and the unknown is what's scary. I think when you in a perfect world, go back to the reserves. In the perfect world, we could have a year's worth of reserves to cover all the landlords that we need to pay. But that's not the case. And in a perfect world, we'd have some certainty. That's definitely not the case. All we can be certain of is we don't know what's going to happen after October 1. But we have to do everything we can to try and protect the people that depend on us as an organization to help protect them. And we have to be creative, and we have to be collaborative. And, I was saying to someone at City Hall recently that I think it's really nice that we've been able to have some good announcements the last couple months. We're trying to expand our capacity to take care of people and to house people, and we're doing all that amidst true uncertainty and potential disaster. And we're going to keep those places open and operating. That's the key. Is that everything we're doing now, we're going to open and bring to the infrastructure we plan on keeping. But everybody needs to understand is moving this boat is not easy these days.
No, it's not. And if I can just speak a minute to what I mean by resiliency. Resiliency is how do we survive for the next year? Who are we as an agency 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now? When some of us, whether we're on the board or whether we're senior staff or whether we're frontline staff, aren't even here, right? It's what is our investment and our legacy, right? This is an inflection point that none of us could have suspected. But what we do have is we have incredibly innovative and motivated staff at every level. So while we're dealing with crisis, and when I think about what resiliency means, while we have a crisis strategy that we have to identify, thoughtfully implement, and carry out, we are also still looking at what our opportunity strategy is. We've had several grants that were applied for just in the last few weeks around direct cash assistance programs to find other ways to reach people. We are reaching out to foundations and philanthropy in a way that we haven't before so that we can continue. And generally, they do not want to shore up what you've got. They want to create new programs. But if we have new programs when others disappear, then we have options. We are putting a $22.8 million affordable housing NOFA out. We are looking at new and creative financing. We're looking at workforce housing as a new area for us to dive into. So it's important while we are going through challenges and morale is impacted, because how can it not be, that we also have those North Stars and those lights ahead and those opportunities where we still do what we love and what we're all here for, which is creating more opportunities for our community. So that's how I think about resiliency. Crisis strategy, opportunity strategy, and our long-term health as an agency. So we can still show up for the community in ways that our staff does in amazing compassion and dedication every day.
I agree, Lisa. I'll just say this. I think that, well said. It is they always say that you learn about the culture of an entity, of an organization during times of crisis and how they withstand the storm. And there's no doubt in my mind that what this organization had to go through from 2020 when COVID began to today showed a lot about the culture and the strength of this organization. What we're going through over the next couple of years, I'm going to say that, is going to also, be a test of the courage and the commitment. And I think that this organization will stand up and shine. And remember, everything that everybody does that works for this organization is about a touch point with somebody who really needs us. It's about a show of support. It's about consoling. It's about and contributing something that actually benefits them. And it's going to be a tough time, but we will get through it. I have no doubt. And so everybody should keep the faith. We are all in this together. And I know I speak for every one of the commissioners. We are all in this together, as Joyce said. So, all right. Okay.
We have to take a vote.
We have to take a vote on this. Yes. Okay, so are there any further comments? All right. Seeing none. Did you guys vote on the minutes while I was out?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, we're here now.
Seeing no.
Just barely.
Barely get that right. I will entertain a motion and a second if there are no further comments. Motion by Vice Chair Klemner. Second by Commissioner Vasquez. Seeing no further comments, the motion, all those in favor of the motion, say by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. Motion carries unanimously. And with that, this concludes today's board meeting, and the meeting is officially adjourned at 10:12 a.m. Thank you very much for everybody joining us.